Jan started off saying today is the 10th of February. It's the 7th day of the lunar cycle. This is the 3rd month of the Buddhist lunar calendar. He says we make use of the cycle of the moon as a way for measuring the changing of time, passing of time, say with the calendar and so on. And since ancient times, wise people have encouraged us to learn about life and the things that we're involved with in this life as a human being, in the environment, the world around us. So that includes things like the moon and the movement and cycles of the moon. Every day we can see a certain cycle of or a pattern going on. The sun comes up in the morning and we have daylight, then it goes down, we have nighttime, we have moonlight, but sometimes the moon is in recession or disappears for when it's new moon time. These are cycles to be observed and learnt from. One day is, we say, one cycle of the turning of the earth. So you get the time when the sun is exposed to the earth, or you're part of the earth where you're living, then the time when it's covered because the earth has turned around, spun around. So the moon is teaching us something. It's teaching us about the cycle and changing nature of these things. Similarly, we can learn about our own personal life, our health, this body, the health of this body and the health of this mind. You can see that also has its own cycles and is affected by time. You can see that how stressed or relaxed we feel often is determined by the time of the day and what we're involved with. So most people find the daytime is the time they're involved in most of their activities. They use their nervous systems, their muscles much more during the daytime as they work, as they go about their business. And so that builds up a sense of stress. We feel tireder, we feel weaker by the end of the day. So nighttime tends to be a time when we come to relax, to rest and to sleep, to catch up on some of this the stresses of our daily activities. It's a time we can relinquish some of that. So our health involves these kind of cycles. Similarly, we have to eat food and drink to nourish this body. Once we've eaten food, we have to digest it. Later on, we have to send it out, the waste we send out from this body as urine or excrement. In the long term, there's also cycles of this body and this existence or this life that we can learn from. We can see how a human being, they grow from being just a small baby that's born into a young person, and into a middle age, and then into old age, and then to death. That's a cycle of part of our existence that's continuing on all the time. And that's beyond our individual control. Nobody can stop themselves getting older. Nobody can hold themselves back from growing from a child into an adult and then into old age and then death. Nobody can control that. We don't have real ownership over this body in a way that we could control these sort of functions. So our duty then is more to understand these things, understand the true nature of this body and of life itself. And we have to come to accept these truths, the fact that we are getting older and one day we have to die, and that this body is not ultimately ours to own or control. We do have to let it go. But meanwhile, we do have the duty of looking after the body while we have it. So we feed it, we clothe it, support it in different ways. We try, say with food, we try to choose food that is healthy for us, supportive of good health, because food is very much our source of strength in life. It boosts our immune system, our ability to fight off disease, to fight off heat, cold and other obstacles. So you could look on food as a kind of medicine. It's really a medicine to keep our body going on a daily basis. And like any medicine, if you take too much of it, you can have an overdose or have bad effects. If you take the wrong kinds of food, over time they can have a bad effect on your body. They can lead to more ill health, more suffering. So you have to learn how to balance your diet, eat a healthy diet in the right amount. For the monks, the Buddha gave this teaching, or for anyone staying in a monastery on a retreat, we eat 1 meal a day in the morning. For lay people at home, you might eat 3 meals a day, or sometimes people even eat many more times than that. But you can see from the lifestyle of a monk that 1 good meal is actually enough for preserving good health, keeping our body strong and healthy without any particular obstacles. Often we look at our health as something more of just something you might say as luck. If we have good health, we say we're lucky. If we have bad health, we say we're out of luck, we're in bad luck. But really it's something more than just saying it's luck, isn't it? We should look more closely to see how we could manage our lifestyle wisely, to find the right kinds of food, the right amount of food, and the other things that we consume in life, so that we can live to the best of our ability and with the best of health that we can manage. We have to learn then what kind of food is really suitable for us, what is healthy for us in our diet. But of course at the end of the day you also know that you can only maintain the body, look after it so much, to a certain level. In the end though, we can't stop it aging, we can't stop the process of decline, and ultimately we do have to die. That's inevitable. What we have to do is then be wise towards these issues. So we have to look and see what is beneficial for us in the present moment, what we call the Titta Dhamma, that which is beneficial for us right now, say in the way we lead our lives, the choices we make. Then we also look at what will be beneficial for us in the future, Samparayika Dhamma. In some decisions and choices we make, some things we do in our lifestyle will be for our long-term benefit in the future, not just for the present moment. You could say Dhamma practice is then learning to do that which is beneficial for yourself now and for the future. It's that which supports the arising of goodness in your heart, in your mind, and with this goodness you have a sense of well-being. You can see that health is part of Dhamma practice. Learning to support good conditions for good health, like through our food and the way we live. This will support our overall state of mind and the practice of Dhamma, and it's an important supportive condition for our practice of doing good and developing ourselves. To practice we also need mental qualities. So the beginning or the most fundamental quality you need to practice Dhamma is faith, sattha. You have to have that sense of confidence and belief that practice is worth it, it's valuable. From this we get a sense of willingness or a sense of satisfaction to do the practice. We see it's something that is good for us and we want to do it. Really, this quality sattha means knowledge, in the sense understanding of what is truly good for us. If you have that understanding, that knowledge, then you'll act accordingly. So sattha leads on to skillful action. Coming back to food, we can say that there are different kinds of food we take. The word food, ahara, in the Buddhist term means that which we consume. So there's the physical or normal kind of food, kapilinga ahara, so that's like just nutrition of the basic kind of foodstuffs that we take in. But other kinds of consumables, well, there's things we call medicinal requisites that we can take, so that includes other items, medicines. For a monk this might include things like fruit juices and oil and ghee, molasses and other more refined foodstuffs. We can consider these medicines, and then lifetime medicines, all the different medicines we might receive from a doctor or a pharmacist, and different natural herbal remedies. In society we have the health department of the government. They help us to give us knowledge and guidance on this for a healthy diet. They divide up food into 5 main groups. They say proteins, which help to give us strength and vitality in the body. It's carbohydrates, which give us energy for working and movement. Vitamins, which help boost the immune system. Fats, which help again with energy. These different groups of food, we have to learn how to balance them and eat the right amount. Yesterday in Sydney, where I was staying, they offered me some medicine to reduce the cholesterol level in the bloodstream. Really, you don't need to take extra medicines to reduce your cholesterol. If you're already considering these issues, then you may prevent cholesterol becoming too high by just controlling your food, being careful what you eat, and thinking about your diet and eating in the right way, the right proportion. Then you wouldn't really need these kind of extra medicines. Where does food come from? Say physical food come from? It comes from the Mahabhuta Rupa. That's the 4 main elements that make up the material world. That is earth, water, fire and air. Now, these are just existing in nature. Nobody owns them, these 4 elements. But they come together to form the different things we have in nature. So this body is made up of the 4 elements. The food we eat is made up of the 4 elements. We eat that food and it keeps the body going. But these 4 elements are part of nature, and they're subject to impermanence. They don't stay fixed in their different groupings all the time. They're changing and are subject to decline, degeneration. So even though we eat food all the time to keep the body healthy, we cannot change the fact or prevent the fact that this body is also subject to aging. The body, as time goes by, gets older, the cells die, the nature of the body changes, and one day it must stop functioning altogether. It must come to death. All we can really do is keep the body maintained the best we can. We keep the bodily functions going the best we can. The different processes of this body we try to look after and keep it going. But often these days you can see with people with their lifestyle, they're caught into carelessness because they don't understand these sort of basic truths. Often people are unskillful in what they eat, the kind of food they eat, the amount of food they eat, when they eat. All these kind of regular parts of our lifestyle, often we neglect them. We don't look very closely, and therefore it leads to a lot of problems for people, a lot of suffering, physical suffering and even mental suffering. At this point, Luang Por was asked a question about birth and rebirth, about the way people believe, that some people believe in rebirth, some don't. Some people believe this is just the only life we have and there's nothing left. Once we die, that's the end of it. And Luang Por said that kind of view can often lead to heedless behaviour, perhaps, because people who believe that after death nothing happens, nothing further happens, well, they tend to not be very concerned about the consequences of their actions. Often they think, well, it doesn't matter what I do, I'll just do what I want now, whatever I choose to do I'll do, the consequences won't come back to me. And so often they can be quite careless and do unskillful things. Another thing that we tend to do in life is attach very strongly to the place we live, for instance, our possessions, the people we know, our family and friends. And this can be a great cause of suffering, particularly as we're coming to the end of our life. That attachment will be an attachment, a mental thing in the mind that causes suffering in the mind. The Lord Buddha taught us to understand the difference between wholesome karma, unwholesome karma, what is good, what is bad. And once we learn what is good karma, we are learning what is truly beneficial for ourselves and others, then this leads us to act accordingly. If we understand what is good and bad karma, then naturally we'll try to abandon and avoid making bad karma, because we know this leads to decline and suffering, and good karma will want to make and develop because it's for our own benefit and for the benefit of others. So looking after our health is very much a part of the Dhamma practice, because it's such an important contributor to our sense of well-being. If we don't take any interest in our health, the kind of food we eat, the lifestyle we lead, or if we fall into wrong views about this, it can very easily lead to suffering and negative states of mind arising. The Lord Buddha also, though, talked about other kinds of nutrition, not just the physical nutrition of food and medicines and so on, but about mental kinds of nutrition or nutriment. The first of these is what we call phassa ahara, which is like sense contact as something that we consume, in the sense that our five senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and sense with the body, these bring us sense contact all the time. Different information comes through our senses all the time. Different experiences, pleasant, unpleasant, come through our senses all the time. And these can stimulate reactions in the mind of liking, disliking, attraction, aversion. Our sense contact is affected by the world around us, the environment around us, society, the people around us, and so on. All of this we can make a basis for learning. We learn from our eyes, from our ears. So we learn from the eyes, what we call the jaksu pasada, the sense organ of the eye. Another way the Buddha referred to it is it's a tawara, it's a doorway. Why is it a doorway? Because it brings in information. We see things through the eye, so it brings in information to the mind. The sotapassada, the sense organ of the ear, is another doorway, isn't it? It brings in sounds to the mind. All of this sense contact stimulates what we call dhamma aramana, like moods, states of mind based on the different sense contact we have. We have pleasant sense contact, so your eyes see something pleasant and we can delight in that, we feel good about that, we like it. Unpleasant sense contact can lead to aversion or rejecting that sense contact or the feeling that comes from that sense contact. If we're not aware of this process going on, if we're not mindful, then often suffering and problems arise in the mind and we're not quite sure where it's come from or why. Liking that is based on our sense contact. This is that quality of attraction, the mind grasping, moving towards the objects that it likes. Disliking means the rejection of the experience. So we might have a sense contact that is unpleasant and the mind rejects it. It gets caught into that mode where it's rejecting, moving against, moving away from that experience. If there's no mindfulness, no wisdom present, then this whole process will not be clear to the mind. It's like somebody with eyes that are covered over with a film of white film over their eyes. They can't see light, can't see things clearly. If we're not mindful or reflecting wisely on our sense contact, then we won't be able to see the truth of what's going on properly. We have to therefore practice to see our own minds at all times, to bring in the Dhamma into the mind, bringing into a state of clarity where we're seeing the truth at all times. We have to practice patience and endurance with all this sense contact, and to deal with the different moods that arise in our own minds based on that sense contact. We have to establish mindfulness to know our own mood. And we have to also practice patience just to get used to a lot of this sense contact. You have a lot of sense contact, it's quite tiring, it's stimulating, tiring, and we need to be very patient to deal with that. Most of all, we need to investigate with wisdom to see the process where sense contact is stimulating different moods in our mind, different reactions. It's like what the people of old said, to see, really look clearly into the water, then you'll get to know the fish in there. In the same way, as time passes, we'll get to know the person. Meaning, if you keep practicing, developing mindfulness of your sense contact over time, you'll learn about how different moods of attraction and aversion arise. And you'll notice the nature of all your moods of attraction and aversion based on sense contact, what they are. You'll see the limitations of them. It's what we call the realm of sensuality, Gama Bhava, Gama Pop, that the Buddha talked about, where if there's no mindfulness, then the mind is just constantly caught into its senses and the reactions to its senses, and it knows nothing else, nothing beyond that. But if we develop wise reflection with mindfulness, we can start to see that these pleasant and unpleasant experiences that come through our senses, these are just normal parts of the world. We don't have to attach to them. We can deal with them with equanimity and just this state of knowing. Just in the same way as the physical food can be both a source of good health, but if mismanaged, maybe it can become a cause of disease and ill health. Similarly, this mental food of contact, of phassa, it can be a source of wisdom to us, but it can also be a source of suffering if we don't know how to deal with it properly. One of the ways the Buddha had us practice with this in order to help bring up a suitable state of mind to investigate these things is the practice of Bojjhane Matanyutta. You're learning the right amount for consumption. So if it's food, we're learning to eat the right amount of food for you, not too much, not too little. Learning to be modest in what you consume, not extravagant or greedy, say. And similarly with your sense contact, learning to moderate the amount of sense stimulation you have, not to indulge your senses too much, not to get caught into too much greed for the senses and the objects of your senses. This is what we call right practice, Samapatipata, where we're learning about our sense contact and the moods that they stimulate, the pleasant and the unpleasant, and just see what they are, know what they are. For instance, the other day I went to the seaside. They took me there, and as I was standing on the shore, I observed the nature of the ocean. Constantly you have wind and currents whipping up waves which come into the shore, and they break on the shore, and then they disappear and go back into nothing. And you can see that sense contact is just that way. The world brings us all kinds of both pleasant and unpleasant sense experience. But it's just like waves on the sea. It comes in, we experience it, and it breaks up and disappears again. There's nothing really to it. It's empty. In a way you could say we live in this world, in society, we're constantly receiving waves, like sea waves of experience. But they just arise, they pass away, there's nothing really there. Another kind of mental nutrition the Buddha talked about, mano sanchetanahara, means the food of mental volition. Our thought formations, our mental volitions, intentions, which are constantly coming up into the mind, powered through karma. Often we are not aware of this. Moods pop up into the mind and we just don't know where they've come from. So it's a very refined thing to observe. We must really train our mindfulness and wisdom to start observing, becoming more aware of this inner mental food, the food of mental volition. Make it a part of the practice to get to know this. The practice teaches us to understand the world, both the external world and the internal world of this body and mind. Similarly, with the Similarly with consciousness. Consciousness is another form of mental nutrition. Just consciousness itself. It's something that we're constantly consuming in that sense. Perhaps the most refined kind of nutrition. To be aware of it, to really know it, you have to really perfect your practice of mindfulness and development of wisdom to know this mind, the state of consciousness itself. So all the practice is teaching us to understand this world, the body and mind, in an ever more deeper level, on a more refined level. And as we practice in this way, gradually gives rise to understanding. From this understanding we get more confidence in the Buddha's teachings. We understand more what we have to do in the practice. Luang was just asked, how should we practice at the very end of our life, the last moment when we're dying? What should we do with our mind at that time? He said, the moment of death is nothing special in itself. It's just a function of nature. The body comes to an end of its life. It's just that much. He said, in terms of practice, well, when you go to sleep at night, can you be mindful just to the last moment when you fall asleep? That would be a good way to practice for the moment of death. Just practicing mindfulness as you fall asleep at night.